Everything's coming up greener.
Here's Harold Matthews. He is
the Garden Doctor. The Garden Doctor.
Hello and welcome to the Garden Doctor Show.
Hi.
And now I can't just say hello and welcome Connorsville. I have to say hello and welcome just in general because we're growing, we're expanding, just like my wife's plant, which usually dies.
I know, but
we're
we started,
reaching out into Wayne.
We started here in Connorsville, so I kind of missed you saying hello, Connorsville.
Hello, Connorsville.
But yes, now we are being shown in Wayne County and throughout Fayette County, so we're real excited to get out and get some new viewers and listen to some new gardening questions.
We may even be growing and expanding even further.
And we are live tonight. This is a live show, so please give us a call with your questions. The number on the screen, 825-3245. Give us a call. We're live.
Oh, she just remembered that. We do not have a monitor. Can't see ourselves.
No?
You know, normally I could tell you that, but so she just remembered that right off the top of her head. Which is
steel trap right here.
Steel trap. So that we can get it out of the way real quickly because we may have to move it because of our green goes with green goes with green.
Yes,
tell them about this thing.
Well,
that's up here
this is an awesome device. My father sent me this as a gift, and he knows I'm not the greatest person in the whole world with houseplants. So let's take a look at this here. It looks like your standard potted plant here. However, there are sensors in the bottom, and if it should get dry and need water, it sings to you. Hold on.
Well, turn it on.
I'm working on it.
Well, you're not.
Raindrops keep falling on my head.
I gotta put it near my mic.
But that doesn't mean my
We're good.
be turning.
All right, put it down.
Yeah, okay.
Anyway.
So yeah, isn't that a
however,
nifty
she has
gift?
never heard it sing because every time it's singing, I'm the one that hears it sing.
Somebody else waters it, and I
then it
feel
gets watered,
It's
and so
fine.
she never gets to hear it.
No.
But it's a great device,
It is.
and it's a lot of fun.
My
and
dad
let me
got
tell
those.
you, if they don't sing and beg and plead and scream at her,
They don't live in my house.
they're going to die. A houseplant is going to die.
This is the way I'll get rid of this.
I think everybody knows that we're in a drought, and the drought is severe. But what you may not know or may not recall is that this is not the first year that your plants are going through a drought.
No.
This is actually the third season that they will be. Now, they weren't consecutive, but we had some severe drought 5 years ago, and then again last year, and now this year. And this drought started way, way early. So your plants are under extreme stress. As a matter of fact, when I drove from Connorsville to Brookville just recently, there were plants that I noticed. I had to pull over and retreat and look at a couple of them because one plant in particular had died and all the leaves were still on the tree. And it had just crisped up. And it had died from drought. It had just succumbed. And all of the moisture had drained out of the foliage. And there it was, as brown could possibly be. Wow. And at this time of the year. Yeah. And we are still early. We're not even into July yet. And by the end of this week, we are going to hit 100 degrees or better and have no rain.
And 100-degree days in the summertime usually isn't a problem if you have adequate rain coming down. We can deal with hot days, but we got to have some rainy nights and
this is very, very serious, and you need to take this seriously. And if you are on a well, you may have to conserve water. I don't know about what your water situation is independently. I know that here in Connorsville, we are so fortunate to be on one of the finest aquifers of this entire area of the state.
Excellent water supply.
So we should not have any restrictions and be able to water mostly throughout the drought. However, you still don't want to be abusive and just let the water flow. So we're going to go over some of the points of how you can conserve water as well as how you can water appropriately and for the maximum effect for your plants. But make no mistake, we are in a major major drought. Your plants are under extreme stress. They started way early in the season. We had record-breaking March, record-breaking April, and we're about to have another record-breaking June. Things are quite serious.
We don't have to leave our yard to see it. We have plants that have been well established for 5 years or more, and they are really suffering and wilting. You can tell that they're thirsty. We're watering quite a bit ourselves out at the farm, so just to keep our personal plants alive.
Yeah. Now, let me tell you about a big tree.
Tell me about a big tree.
If you have a large tree in your yard, and that tree is well established, got roots way down to who knows where, and it can reach out and grab some moisture, you still need to water it. In particular, if this tree, part of its root structure is covered by blacktop or driveway or your house or your sidewalks, all of those things restrict the amount of moisture that is available to that tree. So they definitely positively need to be watered. Now,
so can you set up just a sprinkler, run it for a few hours, and water this tree? Is that enough?
You can do that, and it will benefit. Every amount of rain helps. But what will happen if we were to get a downpour of rain tomorrow? There's a good chance that the trees in your yard and most of the shrubs would not benefit from that downpour of rain.
No, you've got that runoff problem. When we've been in a drought so long and that ground gets so hard, and you can probably see the cracks in it in some places that were muddy and they dried up. When we have that amount of drought and heat, there's just no way.
It creates a crust.
It will absorb.
And the moisture is not being drawn down through. It just runs off.
Mm-hmm.
It fills the overflows real quick, and we have a flooding problem.
And there's so much concrete and blacktop in the city that, the runoff, it doesn't run into dirt and flower beds. It runs into sewer drains.
Now, oftentimes, I have been, people have called me up and said, "Hey, Harold, I saw you out watering in the rain. Come on." Well, there's a reason for that. I want the soil to be receptive to this rain. And whenever we have a drought and whenever there's a rain going to be coming in, I make a special effort to go out and water as many of my lots as we can, as many of the customers' homes as we can, to soften the ground, to moisten the ground, to loosen the ground and make it receptive for this rainfall that's going to come in.
Well, the same thing we've talked about watering pots. The first watering, like a dry sponge, that water does not get absorbed. But if you can get some moisture into the ground and then water, it will be more receptive to taking in water.
We have a lot of large containers that we maintain for around waterfalls and in pool areas and so forth. And so we have to learn different methods of keeping the water, the moisture in there. And we found that by layering, and we've come to this just recently, by layering and creating a moisture section down underneath the plant, and filling that up with moisture, you can, in fact, create an environment where a plant can survive. However, you take that same plant without all of this, without the moisture to initially have it wet, down to the bottom, then the plant will die, and you're watering it. And what has happened is this peat moss that we've put down underneath the plant has dried out and caked. And it's allowing the water to run right down through. So we always tell whoever's watering, if we're doing the watering on these pots, to soak it down first, and then the second time give it is the only drink that matters.
And some of these, I know people love these beautiful hanging baskets. There's so many gorgeous ones out there, the petunias and everything else, and they are beautiful. The problem is most of them are either in plastic baskets or in cocoa-lined baskets, and there's not a whole lot of soil actually in those baskets.
They need to be upcanned.
So once they get full and lovely, the pot that it's in is pretty much root bound or out of soil. So it has to be repotted into a bigger pot or something done to create more something to hold moisture.
And we hope very much to be able to show you exactly what we're talking about here in the
Yes.
very next show, because we're going to have a field camera to take out and actually
can't
show
wait.
you what it is we're going to be doing, how we do it. And what she's talking about is if you buy a plant right now from any of the local growers or from any of the local stores, it's probably going to be root bound. All of the roots are going to be over, they're going to have taken over all of the
Space
soil
that's there.
and you just can't keep it alive in that container. So taking it from that container and putting it into a much larger container, even if it's still a hanging
Good
basket,
soil.
will solve part of the problem. But you should slice the roots. Run a knife in a going across.
Yeah, when
the
you
roots.
take the pot off the bottom, you'll see they go round and around and around, and those roots will not spread out any further into the new soil unless you slice them. They'll continue to grow in a circle.
So you want to cut that and put it in there, and we're going to show you how to do that. And what you're doing is giving this plant twice as much soil just by adding going up 2 container sizes and giving it twice as much moisture retention. But we're also going to show you how to take advantage of the dews in the morning and so forth like that. There's a lot of ways you can conserve moisture.
Well, that's
too.
going to get your hanging baskets through the season. It's going to keep them, even in this drought, you'll probably be able to water them and keep them going, whereas without potting up these baskets, you pretty much have to water them every day, watch the water run right through, and do it again every day because they just can't retain it.
I had an interesting question. A guy stopped me on the street and he said, please, can you tell me, is there anything that I can grow in a drought in the garden?
Cactus.
Well, you can actually eat cactus. You can eat prickly
I like
pear
the prickly
cactus.
pear cactus, and
Yeah.
when it blooms, that is a beautiful bloom.
And we just had John mentioned that, when I asked the question, what can you grow in a drought? He said cactus. But actually, there are other plants
Very good drought resistant.
that are very
plants.
drought resistant. Now, in the garden, you've got another problem. The problem that happens in the garden is everything that we put in there, we're trying to eat it. So they normally are high demand of nutrients and of water. But the pepper is different. The pepper, once it's established, it is a low demand water and will withstand very high temperatures.
I have peppers producing already that I put in dirt.
They
watered
love
once,
it hot.
and they're
they
loving
love it dry. They love the arid conditions. Of course, they're around Mexico area, even further
their
south.
origin.
Yeah, that's so they thrive in that particular region. Again, they don't grow without water, but they do like to be dried out before.
in between waterings.
And that's
The
another problem.
tomatoes, they're a little more demanding, aren't they? The tomatoes.
Yeah,
and the
because
young
anything that
cucumber
has
vines.
water in it,
Yeah.
a lot of moisture in it. With the pepper, there's not near as much as there
That's
is in
true.
the tomato.
So we're having to water our own garden on a regular basis just to keep things alive, keep things going. And
But you still need to make sure that things dry out.
what'd you drop something down
Nope,
there,
I've
honey? What do you
pinched
got
my
going on
my
there?
neck here. So pulling myself down. You still have to make sure that you allow your plants to dry out, because keeping them wet is only half of the battle. If they were constantly wet, then we would be in a
Well, then they rot in the pot.
Yeah.
You can't stay constantly wet.
well, the environment that they would be in would be almost hydroponic. And you can grow many plants.
Well, daylilies, even a lot of the lilies will grow just in water.
They will grow.
Well, even this, what's this house plant in this pot here? The philodendron.
Pothos? What do you got over there?
I don't know, philodendron.
Whatever,
Well,
yeah,
people grow
philodendron,
them in
yeah.
bottles where just the roots are in the water and they trail all over the place. So, yeah, some plants could live on just being in
Well,
water.
but my point is that in most cases, if you overwater, you're going to rot them off.
That's right.
And if you don't let the plant dry out, you're not going to get the fruit production, and it's not going to produce near as much as you will if it has wet conditions, and then you let it dry out the whole time that is necessary before you water it again. When you're dealing with your flowers, your hanging baskets, you really want them to dry down and really get thirsty. Even let them be a little bit on the oh my gosh side.
The wilted, but not the crisp.
Yeah. It's really a good idea to let your plants dry down, because in nature, a plant only produces its blossom and its fruit heavily if it thinks it's going to die. So if you keep it in perfect condition all the time, you're not going to get as much flower production or as much fruit production.
Push it to the edge, give it some juice, and watch it really
Definitely.
jump.
We
right?
had a bunch of questions come in. As a matter of
Yes.
fact, it was a little bit overwhelming. We tried to consolidate some of them. We had quite a flood come in from, I did a little seminar, and so can you run this question? Well, no, we can't run all of those questions.
I kind of would like to use up some time just to ask you. I probably
Use
should
up
do this
some
at
time?
home, but I want to ask you about my
Time
fruit
is-
trees. I never see him. Okay, this is an hour. He's all mine. I share him with you. But right now, I can ask you a question. We have some fruit trees.
Do I have to answer?
The ones that are left after I backed over the one, we have some fruit trees left. 2 years ago, they produced beautiful fruit. Peaches, they weren't the biggest, beautiful things. They were the sweetest thing you ever put in your mouth. Plums, delicious sweet. Last year, no fruit.
Yep.
Okay, now comes this year. You said we should have fruit every other year. Okay,
Well, no.
maybe.
The every other year thing, no. Most of your apples, peach, pear,
Okay.
everything will produce fruit every year.
Will I have peaches this year is what I want to know. And is this drought going to ruin everything?
Well, not the drought, but the early frost.
Okay.
The late frost, I should say. It came very late this season, and then the early drought, the early dry conditions, and we weren't real diligent.
Because
getting
I don't
water
see those
over to
trees setting any fruit.
them. No, there's very little. So
They may be mad I
what is
mowed over their
necessary?
neighbor. I don't know.
What is necessary is that you have pollination. The trees are in good health. Then the blossoms come, and the bees have to be there at the right time. And what happened this year is the blossoms came out, and we got that frost,
Yep.
and it knocked them right out.
Now, we have some plants. I'm amazed that they survived. We put in some hardy kiwi plants, male and female kiwi plants. We put in, to help me, fig trees. We put in a lot of different plants, and most of them came through the winter and are starting to come out of it. We put in some grapes, lots of raspberries, some blackberries. Those are all thriving well.
Well, it's because they were watered in the fall.
And we water, I would have to say, every day. There's a sprinkler running somewhere at our house.
Well, it's because we have just probably 12 to 15,000 daylilies, and we may have 300 to 500 grasses, and all of those need a lot of water. And then our garden, and then the stuff that we're holding until we think that it's safe to plant it for people.
Kind of another question. Several people have called us personally and asked or stopped by the house if we're going to have our annual plant sale.
Because of the drought, we are not.
We were unable to do it last year. We had some personal things we had to take care of. We weren't here. We like to have the sale when everything is in bloom so everybody sees what they're getting. However, this year with this drought, for me to send you home with plants to plant and water and live is going to be extremely difficult. So we are not having the plant sale this year. However, that means all of our clumps of grasses and daylilies are getting bigger and stronger and better.
So they'll be better next
for
year.
next year. So
well,
we'll see
anyway,
how
get
that
to some of
goes.
these questions that came in.
Okay.
And, now we want to welcome everybody from Wayne County.
Yes.
And please call in and ask a question. You can get through to us on our...
I know we're live here in Connorsville. I'm not sure if Wayne County is getting the live feed or if they get the reruns, but we are live here in Connorsville, 825-3245. Give us a call.
Do you remember what our email address is? Our new email address?
You know,
Ha ha
I knew you were
ha!
gonna ask
Stumped
me
her.
that.
That cost her $1. Read one of the questions.
All right, I'll do that. I had one question about somebody who asked that a plant in their foundation planting died suddenly, and it's one of many of the same kind.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
What is the cause?
Well, and the very first thing I want you to check, and I want you to check it very, very carefully and make sure that you know the answer to this question. And if you don't, call the utility people that will check for you. Find out where your gas line is. See if the gas line comes in there. The best way to do that is by going in the basement. And don't just walk down in the basement, because if you have a leak, if there's something going on, your basement could have a problem. So open the door, take a smell there, or if you know where your line comes into the house because of your meter and so forth, you may be able to identify that this is a problem. It is not uncommon for the gas lines after a period of time to work loose. So and if you have a gas leak, then it will kill just one plant in that right underneath where the pipe is. The pipe is right underneath the plant. So another thing that has happened very often that people don't consider is a lot of people had the sidelines that went out to either gas lanterns or went to grills. And when they quit using the gas lantern or the grill, they just shut the valve off or at the base of the light, but not necessarily back up at the meter.
Okay.
And didn't have it removed. And we have run into a great number of these that were broken or leaking. Now, they don't leak very much, but it's enough where it can kill a shrub.
So the death of one shrub in an otherwise perfectly healthy foundation planting could actually be a sign of a possible problem.
It could even be a
in
water
gas line.
It could be a water main too. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
It could be a water line leak, because an excess of water will kill just as much as a lack of water. It could also be a sewer line. It's possible that the septic system that's right there, that there could be some toxicities coming out of that, or just a surplus of water.
Well, at my house, it's usually a mole who got up under the plant and ate out
Not
all
a
the
mole.
roots.
These things are this big around and this long.
And this plant sits here looking, the ground around it looks fine, and it's dying. It's dying. It's dying. I'm watering. It's dying. And then come to find out, there's a pocket underneath because
An air pocket,
of
yeah.
the moles.
Yeah, and this is a tremendous
Bad problem. It is in my
They're
yard.
eating the roots off the bottom of your plants. They're feeding on the nematodes that are down there. They're opening up an air pocket. They're destroying your yards. They're and there's really. There are solutions. I don't know what they are. I am very bad at getting rid of the moles in your yard.
We've set traps. We've
Forget
put
about
down
all of that
granules.
nonsense.
We've put down stuff to kill the grubs that feed the moles. We've set more traps. We've done all kinds of things.
And I have
but-
been very, very unsuccessful.
Yes, but I am trying to teach my little dog, super mighty tiny dog, to dig a mole's trail until she finds it and kill it. I'm still working on it. And when I get that job done, I will rent her out.
One of my dearest, sweetest, best customers. I would do anything in the world to get Evelyn Wilson's yard not to look like somebody had just exploded bombs everywhere.
Oh no, she's got the moles
The
bad.
moles are back, and I don't know. I even tried paying the
I
moles.
think all you can do is chase them to the neighbor's yard until they're done and can come back. I don't really
Now,
see
in
how you
Europe,
get rid of them.
In Europe and in Scotland, I guess, and in some other places, England, Scotland, I don't know. Some
Yeah,
other
that's
place in
over
Europe.
there somewhere.
Yeah, they have dogs that they lease out, and they bring their home, their dog house, and the water bowl and food bowl, and they say, okay, they walk the perimeter, and they say, get the moles, and they charge so much for this service.
Are you saying that there's dogs out there smarter than my dog?
I'm not saying that. I'm
Okay.
saying that these dogs have been trained to do other things.
Okay, I want to make sure you
Yes.
weren't saying that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
But anyway,
All
there
right.
are people that can solve the problem, but I'm not one of them.
Okay, we've had a question about, well, several questions that say my lawn is brown. What do I need to do to bring it back? What should I let it rest? What do I do? There are brown lawns everywhere, and there are a couple of exceptions. If it's a newly seeded lawn,
Well,
you may want to put in that extra effort to water.
Let me tell
and
you
keep it
again.
alive, but
Last year during the
what
drought,
do you do?
we put in a number of skids of sod. We over on Vine Street at my good friend over there helped me
Way too much work for
build a
not-
muzzle loader and
Impossible
everything
to
else.
make it
I would have
live.
done anything to keep his lawn alive.
And we did water.
We went by and we watered
We
day
watered
and night
and
in the mornings
watered
and evenings.
and watered.
And
So
at the end, we should have just cut our losses, let it die, roll it
Start
up,
over.
and start all over, which I ended up having to replace in the fall.
Right.
There's certain things that you cannot replace.
Well,
Okay,
I
we have a
think-
caller. We're going to interrupt.
all right, we have a caller on the phone.
I can tell my wife to shut up.
Okay.
You're on the air with the garden doctor. Go right ahead, please.
All right. My question is, I've got some piney bushes that I need to move, and I got some rose bushes that I need to move. Can I move them this time of year?
I would say no, and the reason I would say no is not as much because of the drought. The drought is, of course, a major issue, and you're going to have to water and water and water. But what you could do, since you don't have a ton of things you're moving, you could put a soaker hose out there and flip it on twice a week, 3 times a week, and you could take care of the plants if you absolutely had to
And
move them.
kept them thoroughly watered.
But the
Well, see,
problem
what
is...
I need to do is I need to. I'm trying to put some topsoil in, and because they're in such a low area,
I see.
that I wanted to move them and get soil where everything comes up to where it's supposed to be.
Well, if you're going to put the soil in, you're probably going to also try to put some seed on there or sod. Okay. If at all possible, if you don't have to move the soil now, it's much better to do your seeding or your sodding in the end of August. And also, it's a pretty good time to move your roses and your peonies.
And we may have
at
some
the end of
relief
August.
in the drought by then as well.
I'm hoping so. But if you do absolutely have to move them right now, the roses are going to be very difficult. A rose has a root structure that makes it very difficult to move. What you can do is dig around the rose, a trench around the rose to get down in the ground a little bit deeper, and then don't be quick to cut the root off. Try to loosen the ground up with a water wand, like a Ross root feeder. Blow down into the ground, and actually with the water you're going to flush the dirt off the roots, loosen the ground, and you're going to literally pull the rose up out of the ground. Now what you're doing is you're going to get the taproot that you cannot get by digging it. The only way you can get it is by blasting the ground loose with this hose and then pulling it up out. Now the peony or peony or peony is a different matter altogether. It really shouldn't be moved right now, but I've done it very successfully. What you're moving there is just a root. So you dig a big hole and get every bit of these roots that you can. They look like little tubulars, like you know what a peony tuber looks like. Okay, you get those up and you want to dry them out a little bit and check them out and make sure there's no disease. And then you want to dust them a little bit with baby powder. I like to dry them out in the shade. Don't dry them out in the sun. Dust them with some baby powder. They do really transplant much better if they're dry. They don't transplant as well as if they're wet. Now put them back in a little bit deeper than you found them. You're probably going to find them about 6 to 8 inches deep. You want to put them in about 6 to 10 inches deep. so that they'll come up a little later and they won't get frosted back, and so they'll be a little stronger so they don't tip over like the peonies like to do. And if you put them in a full sun location, they should. Peonies just love to grow in the Midwest. This is the greatest region for peonies of any. But the
again,
rose is
water,
very,
water,
very
water.
difficult to move. The rose is very difficult. But you know what I'm talking about? The water wand that you hook on the end of your hose, shove it down the ground, and it kind of blasts
Make
the
a big
roots.
mud hole and
You make
pull
a
it
big
out of
mud
there.
hole, and then you put on a pair of gloves and just pull it up as you're blasting it.
Rather than cutting that tap root, and you'll have far more success in the
Right.
transplant.
And then it's very important that when you replant a rose, you put plenty of good stuff back in the ground. It likes bone meal. It likes sphagnum peat moss. It likes the I can't even think of the Epsom salts.
Yeah.
Not very much, mixed in with the soil.
And use good soil.
Yeah, good quality soil, and in a full sun location. Roses are a sun-loving plant. They do not like the shade at all.
All righty then.
Well, thank you very much for your call. I hope we've been able to help you there. Thank you.
Okay, do we still have another caller waiting? All righty. Who's calling, please? Hi there.
Hello, you're on.
Hi. Who is this?
Taylor?
What can we do for you, Taylor?
What's the biggest flower in the world?
What's the what?
What is the biggest flower? Is that what
World?
the biggest flower in the world?
Is that what you said?
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
what she said.
The biggest
That's our
flower-
granddaughter, Taylor. Isn't she so cute?
The biggest flower around here is the hibiscus, I believe, and the hibiscus that you can witness up at Mrs. Hollingsworth there on
the
30th
J.C.
Street.
Penney parking lot there.
Right across from Long
Yeah.
John Silver's. We've tested those all over Connorsville. That's one of the first test sites that we used, and it is an absolute beautiful display. People have stopped there and taken their wedding pictures and everything else. You got to drive up around the corner to see it, but I think that's the one that's the biggest.
Well,
Taylor.
what about the sunflowers, Taylor? They got real big in our yard last year, remember?
Like your big flower,
Yes.
the sunflower in the backyard?
Yeah, we had some really big ones last year on the other side of the yard, and they were pretty big.
We have a sunflower plant that
It's like your sunflower in the backyard?
Yep, it was just like that one, but it was giant.
we have a sunflower in the backyard that has not blossomed yet. And when it does, we're going to be very interested to count the blooms. Last year, it had about 60
Oh, I don't
something.
know. But,
And the year before, we
but this
planted
thing
it.
has a stalk on it.
Oh,
I mean, as big around as
yeah.
my arm.
I thought maybe we were going to
It
be
really
climbing
did.
it. Thank you very much for your call, Taylor.
Thank you, Taylor, for calling. We'll see you later, baby girl.
Okay.
All
Love you.
right, love you. Bye.
Love you. Bye.
And we also have Rowan at home.
I
so
know.
when they play this, we want to make sure that we mention Rowan.
Yeah, Rowan and
Taylor.
Taylor, and she's getting to be a big girl and wanted to call in the show and ask a question about some flowers. So.
Now, really, though, the hibiscus, everybody thinks that it's a tropical, that you cannot grow it around here. We have been extremely successful. 5 or 6 now, I think it's 6 different types of hibiscus that I grow, all the way from a dwarf that only gets about 15 to 18 inches tall and has a nice little blossom about this large, to a giant
But those
out
are
at Bud
all
Whipple's.
hardy hibiscus.
All very, very hardy.
Those tropical hibiscus ones you're seeing now for sale, tropical flowers, they're the Florida kind, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
They're not the big
They are-
pie plate
they are not,
blooms
yes.
like, the hardy. And I prefer, now that I've gotten to know them, I prefer the hardy hibiscus.
Now, if you're going up Shawnee, I think it is there.
Shawnee, yes, up toward the high school.
Bud Whipple's house is on the left there. He won't be in bloom for about another 2 or 3 weeks. But no, about another week or two.
I would say it won't be long.
And right there on the side of his driveway. We have 5 varieties, and one of them is the king variety, the big giant one that puts on a gigantic pie.
I've got to get up there and tie those
the
up for him.
blossoms are so large that they'll actually tip the plant
Yes,
over.
I need to tie up the stalks.
But
for
they
our
are so
friend,
so hardy that you can actually use them for a part of her privacy. I have seen them grow very, very thick, and we've been, like I said, very successful with them. You don't want to get in a hurry with a hibiscus, though. We had people actually dig them up and throw them away because they're so late to
the last
sprout.
thing in your garden to come in
One of
your
the
yard.
very, very last things.
And it will look like a dead stick in the ground while everything else is blooming and sprouting. We'll leave that dead stick alone because it's going to send out some shoots, but it's one of the last things.
I had an interesting question. One of my customers she was being a little bit sarcastic. She said, "How can I prevent people who work for me from pulling up my perennials?" Because many perennials do look like weeds. And many of the perennials that we plant, that we put in all over town, if you're not really thinking and really focused, then you can pull them up and throw them away.
Well, some perennials, when they first sprout, actually look quite weedy. I've done it myself.
I know some people that have sprayed them all and killed them, and other people that have pulled them, and we have been guilty of it. I have even been guilty of it.
Yes,
okay.
it happens.
If you plant primarily in 5s and 7s.
In patterns.
In patterns.
3, 5, 7.
Nope, no less than 5.
No less than
because
5.
3 is not quite as much of a mass.
Not enough
that
to
you need.
get a
But if
pattern.
there's 5 of them and they're planted in a staggered row,
you should be able to remember that next year.
that has to be something that somebody installed, because Mother Nature does not do that.
Yeah, when you see
she does not plant in order. And the other thing is, I found successful is to take a take a stick, paint it with fluorescent paint. Just lay out a bunch of sticks and paint it, and stick the fluorescent stick, little short sticks like one of those popsicle sticks, in where the perennials are, and to identify that this is not a perennial.
Just to mark them.
And then I also use the ground paint to go around and paint the weeds that I actually want pulled, so that it identifies the weed. And once they get in the habit of seeing the weed,
one thing I will
reduces
suggest,
the weeding a lot.
I've used the popsicle stick markers, and they're only good for one season. By next year they're rotted away. So you need to, during the year when they're in bloom, put your stick in and mark them. You'll have them for spring.
These you only leave in during the time of the weeding. And take them out.
And then get rid of them.
No, just keep them. Use them next year.
Okay, you leave them in the ground, they rot.
We had so many questions come in. I don't even have a clue how we're going to get to them.
I know. Well, again,
soaker hoses.
Yes.
How to use a soaker hose?
What types? That they see different types. Some are round, some are flat. What do you use
soaker
them for?
Hoses
When?
are
Where?
great, but if they're not used properly, then they do not work. To turn a soaker hose on and think that it's going to water in an hour or 2 or even possibly 3 is just not going to happen. You have to use a moisture meter. Now, if you're using a sprinkler and you want to know if it's working and how well it's working, put a can out in the yard, measure how long it takes for it to get 1 inch of water in the coffee can. Then you will know that with that hose, with nothing else running, without the wife taking a shower, just this running, it takes me an hour and 45 minutes to put an inch in there. Well, that's how long you need to let that run before the plants get a good drink. Because to give them half of a drink is not good.
And 1 inch
it actually stresses them.
A whole lot, isn't it? I mean, really, in a drought, is an inch even?
You need to put 1. Yeah, but you're doing 1 inch a week.
Okay.
If you're watering with a fan sprinkler. But anyway, soaker hose. If you put it out, you've got to coil it around your plants. You can't just run a line.
And the zigzag through the plants doesn't work?
Well, zigzag through, but then come around and zigzag the other way.
Right.
Go this way, one way, and then do the opposite.
I've seen a lot of soaker hoses set up to where half the plants aren't getting any water.
Exactly. And you need to adjust that. So wrap it around this way and then go back around the other way, and just buy an extra soaker hose, connect it onto the end. I like the ones that ooze out. I don't like the ones that spray up because they never spray where you want them to spray, and they are notorious for if you turn them the other way around, they'll actually blow a hole in the ground. So get the kind that ooze out.
It just kind of ooze.
I don't like
leak.
the foamy ones because they're so easy and brittle. I like the ones that are more cloth. They're kind of
It's like a canvas, right?
Yeah.
And it rolls up easy and it unrolls. And
those do a very nice job
they
for us.
do.
You can't leave them wet and let them get moldy, though, because then you're
you got
done.
to dry them out and put them away dry. And
Now, we talked about lawns, and I talked about the lawn that we failed at, that we were doing over on the other side of town. But some people are asking me, is it, should I keep the lawn alive? No. The lawn is brown but not dead. You should not try to wake it back up, because once you do wake it up, then you have to continue to supply it water.
So it's gone brown for a reason. It says, okay, there's not enough water for me to stay green.
It's too hot.
I need to conserve energy and just lay dormant and not be green until some water comes. That's what it's telling you, right?
And it's just like the bear. You don't go into the bear's cave when he's sleeping in the wintertime and shake the crap out of him, and then go back and do it again.
You want to try that?
No,
you ought to try that.
So we let the lawn rest. And if you've put in a new lawn and sowed it late in the spring and just hoped, this is going to be over next week, I'll just keep watering. I'll keep watering. Do we have somebody that we know that
yes,
knows?
And they've kept it alive. He said he's barely greener than his neighbor.
Well, and that's about all you can hope for. But
should he let it go dormant? It's
cut
a
your
new
losses. Let the thing die or dry up, because really most of the new seeds will probably die. But that's all right, because then go in with a weed and feed. Apply the weed and feed at the appropriate time, which would probably be about the middle of July, because I think it takes 20 days or 21 days, something like that they recommend before you do any seeding. So your weed and feed will do the job. If it's not too dry, weed and feed won't work if it's extremely dry and if you have no moisture whatsoever. The weeds, if they don't grow, so you might want to water when you put your weed and feed on.
a lot of the chemicals don't, the fertilizer doesn't break down, the green doesn't form its barrier, nothing.
To just say put weed and feed on at the appropriate time is not, and then don't water your lawn, may not work. I may be telling you the wrong thing in both directions. But if we do break this drought a little bit, or if you want to do some watering, the time to do it would be put the weed and feed on, moisten it in so that it will work, allow the weeds to be killed, then come back in the perfect time, which is the end of August, and seed with a seeder that actually slices the ground, puts the seed in the ground a little bit. And don't put too much seed in the ground, because if you put too much seed, they'll starve each other. And you think putting more seed on will be better.
It's a good thing, sure.
And it's actually the worst thing you can do, because they they draw the water away from each other, and they actually end up killing each other. So it's better to put on the exact amount of seed that is
directed.
needed, and go in two directions with your seed slicer. Go north and south and east and west, and then put a covering of sphagnum peat moss, brown peat moss on. Water it in, and you will have an absolute gorgeous lawn. Now, after you've done that, then start your watering program back up. Water it what is appropriate for that time of the year, and disregard most of the rain. Rain just hits and misses. Do your watering program without, unless
he always tells me, unless you have had 24 hours of steady rain, you still need to water your plants, outside plants, that unless you've gotten 24 hours of steady rain, they have not gotten a sufficient drain.
Especially when we're in a drought. That's just a terrible condition. But it's better to cut your losses and then come back in the fall and put your seed down. Early fall, actually late summer. Okay, then we had some questions
about sudden pine death again. That's come up again.
Well, it's getting more prevalent. Sudden pine death is where one day you go out your door and you're drinking your coffee and you have this green pine. And then next day you go out the same door and you look straight ahead, and the pine is completely dead. Sudden pine death. It's that quick, literally.
Wow.
I have seen it happen in as little as 2 days. There was no yellowing. There was no gradual. It just went poof.
Bam.
And the pine was dead. We think the people in the industry think that it's a constricting of the vascular system, much the same as verticillium wilt and so forth, where it just tightens up very, very rapidly, and there's no juice. There's no blood flow. There's no...
Kind of like your leg, huh?
Yeah, I like
okay.
the both legs. And and it shuts it off suddenly and completely. And, of course, it can't get any moisture, so it dies. I have a problem with that theory because it has to draw it back down out of the needles. I'm not sure. I think that there's 2 or 3 things going on there that we still aren't really positive about. But what to do about this? Well, I'm not sure. We've tried a number of different treatments on the pines that have died to prevent the ones next door from dying. I can't say that they were successful or unsuccessful. We haven't really lost any more where people have had 25 or 30 in the yard and they lost one. Maybe 2 or 3 years later they'll lose another one, but we have no idea why the first one died. So I don't know if I'm preventing it by some of the methods that I'm using, which is a general application of spray, cutting a trench so that the root structure is not intertwined, so it can't pass things through the root structure. But of course, once you dig that trench, you've cut them, but new roots are going to grow almost immediately. So I don't really think that that's solving anything.
Sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, it sounds like a great idea.
Sounded good.
We've tried some some systemics. The people feel better. I don't know if the tree does or not. I haven't been able to speak to the trees yet. But anyway, sudden pine death is something to look for, and you might want to consider not planting a pine.
Well, yeah, but everyone loves pine trees, and I know it's
Put in
hard
a
to do.
spruce.
Put a spruce. I do
yeah.
love a spruce, though.
Yeah. And don't put in a jack pine. Don't put in a Scotch pine. Don't put in a, if you're going to put in a spruce, look at the spruces that are resistant, the ones that have the least amount of problems. Do a little research first.
Speaking of your digging a ditch and whatever, I had a question come in. Said trees everywhere he sees are mounded up at the base with mulch.
Oh,
should I
hate
mound?
that.
His question is: should I mound up the bark mulch around the base of my tree?
Who come up with this crazy idea?
They think it looks good like that. I guess
the only thing that this mounding may do, the only benefit in the universe that I can figure out, is that it keeps the weed eater away from chewing up the trunk. Because if you'll go up over by the cemetery, all those brand new, beautiful, gorgeous trees that they planted up and down along over here by the city cemetery, they're all just chewed up. But that mounding makes no sense whatsoever. Do you see in nature anywhere except for where there's a gopher running around, where the Mother Nature has planted a tree and then a bunch of beavers came around and mounded it up? That doesn't make any sense.
Well, it seems to me it would be farther away from the source of water that it needs
makes
to be.
roots grow. It suffocates the crown.
It drains too fast.
No sense in doing that whatsoever.
Well, I understand.
We have a
where
caller.
you're
We're going to go to the caller, and then we're going to come back to this subject.
Hello.
Hello, you're on the air with the Garden Doctor.
Hello.
Hello. What can we do for you?
Yeah, I have a gladolia, or a glad flower.
Mm-hmm.
I've had them for years, but this year, after it bloomed, there was a pod or something appeared on top of it. Is that seeds, or if it is seeds, what can you do with it?
Yes, it kind of looks like a pickle.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you cut it open, it's full of seeds. Now,
Okay, can you...
You actually can. We have been very successful. There are some magnolia that produce seeds that are not sterile, and then there are others that produce a multitude of seeds, and they are sterile. There would be no reason not to try those.
Okay.
We dug up a bunch that had just volunteered and came up in a lady's bed and planted them all the way around her house, and they're still growing. But it looks something like a pickle, and it doesn't happen very often. And your tree has to be mature before this will happen. It doesn't happen very often on a young tree, but what you should do is leave it on the tree as long as you possibly can. and
Right.
let it go through its natural drying. But make sure that you don't leave it on long enough for the squirrels or the birds to get to it.
Right.
And then clip it off, let it dry under normal conditions, which will be in a paper bag. A paper bag is a fantastic thing. I don't know how it works. I don't know how I don't know the scientific reason, but when you put things in paper bags, they don't rot. Bread doesn't mold, and things age appropriately. They age the way they should. And so if you put it in a paper bag, set it under the sink for a couple of weeks, let it dry out, and then pot up some of those seeds. You may try some of them in pots or just sow them out in the yard. They don't have to be buried very deep, about what a squirrel would bury, about 2.5 inches, 3 inches, and give it a shot. And I'd like to know if
Yeah,
they
that'd
do
be very
grow.
interesting. Yes.
Now you have the pink one, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. The Solangiana, the old-fashioned one, the one that the frost usually gets about 3 out of 5 years. Knocks the bloom right off in it.
All righty.
All right. Thank you very
good
much.
luck.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for calling.
Bye.
I wanted to get to this thing we saw in the newspaper a couple days ago, where there was a picture of a plant, and the article was about after the blooms had
Oh,
fallen
for
off
crying
and
out
whatever.
loud! I haven't had a chance to look at that. You
Well,
mean the white egg thing?
And it has eggs. It has eggs on it.
I don't know.
And the people want to know what the eggs are. Oh, I gave them a surprise.
I
sprung
don't
one
know.
on 'em, yeah.
I honestly, I should have looked it up. I saw the thing. You said something to me about it. And you know, I think I do know a little bit about that. I believe that's in the angel plant. You remember when I used to plant the angel flowers out back, the trumpet?
Oh, the trumpet. Okay, yeah.
Okay. I believe it's in that family. I'm not sure if it's edible or not. It produces a white egg. It looks very much
The
like
weird leaf on it was almost like what's on our little fig tree plants. It's got a weird shaped leaf,
I don't
rounded
know
edges.
anything about it, but I will make an effort to, like anything else that I don't know,
Well, I
and
would
somebody
assume,
asks, I will try to look it up.
Well, because they were in the paper, they probably got a bunch of responses, and they've already got it figured out.
I'm
so
sure
if you
they do.
are watching and that was your tree and you got it figured out, give us a call so we know what it is.
There you go. There you go. A lot of times that's how I learn the most things, is that people will ask a question, I'll research it, then I'll check it out myself, and then I will ask the locals, because the people that grow this stuff right here in Fayette County and Franklin Union and Wayne, that's what we want to know about. We want to tell you about what works here, not what works in Hawaii or even Indianapolis, because the conditions are much different.
Now, on the other side of this mounding around trees business.
I hate this mountain.
Okay.
Did I tell you that?
Yeah, you did. Hush. Okay, so when you plant a regular tree, and you've had me do this in my yard, you plant
have
it.
had her plant trees in
You
our yard.
plant it level, to where it's supposed to be in the yard, and then kind of build up a dirt dam around it.
No.
Okay, to where if it does rain or if you do sprinkle, that kind of keeps an extra little reservoir of water
Right.
up top for the tree.
That's one of the reasons
I
for
like
it.
that.
That's one of the reasons for it. It's a ring that is between it, where the ball goes down in the ground, and between the ball and where the dirt is, that's where the ring goes. Because as you water this tree, the dirt will settle.
True, right.
Okay?
Uh-huh.
And that ring is eventually going
Gonna
to
sink.
settle down to level. But until it does,
It's
it does
holding
create
water.
this ring. When you put a hose in there to water this tree, it doesn't just run off. It runs in the inside. And I
like
also will fill that inside full of mulch and the mound full of mulch.
Mm-hmm.
And the mulch does retain some of the moisture.
Mm-hmm.
That's, by the way, that's one of the things that you can do to conserve moisture in your garden or even in your shrubs. Please do not put stone around your plants. If you do, now a lot of people want to put stone around because they're low maintenance, no maintenance. Well, that's not necessarily true. You're going to increase your maintenance by putting stone around because of the demand of water.
Well, plus the stone itself gets hot, and that's got to be an additional burden on the plant planted in it, isn't it?
But if you plant the right plants in stone, you can get by with it. If you use the more arid plants like the yuccas or the cacti.
Cactus, yeah.
Yeah, you can put cactus in there.
Yeah,
And there
rock.
are local cactus, you just don't want to play in them very much. But yuccas are beautiful. I love to
I
use
do. I
yuccas.
like to see the bloom bloom. Right now, you're seeing them, what's left of them with,
Gold
but when they
swords
bloom,
are
they're
beautiful, real nice plant. And there are other plants that don't mind being in the stone. But if you're going to put your plants in stone, and we got to get back to the conserving, pull back the stone around the immediate area of the plant
give it
and
a
put
ring,
a ring
yeah.
of mulch. Now, eventually that plant will grow over that mulch and you won't see it, but it'll be under there for the benefit of that plant. We have a caller?
I believe we do. Hello.
Hi, I was wondering if when you water your flowers, does it matter if you do it with water softener water, or you have to turn the water softener off?
Well,
Oh, wow.
It does matter, yes. I do prefer that you not use the water softener. In the first place, you're wasting the
Salt and
the
additives
salt.
and all that.
Yeah, well, most of the other additives. The problem is not the salt, though, because city water is different from well water. That's just the way it is. And in the city, you don't have an option. You can't run a line down to the local creek or out to the Brookville Lake and tap off from that. And I'm not sure you would be doing much better. But it is better if you do have a line, and whenever we're involved in the designing of a house, we ask them to plumb off so that all of our outside spigots do not go through the water softener. It's just it's a better idea. And if you have it going through the water softener and you're watering your houseplants, you're going to start seeing white on the top of the soil.
Of salt.
And you'll get a level of salt that will build up eventually on the top and also on the bottom. So much so that when you transplant your plants, you really want to flush every
they're
bit of dirt
with salt. Yeah.
every bit of root, flush it all off, and clean your pots really well, because there'll be the white all the way around the clay. So we do know that it accumulates. We know that an excess of salt for anything that's living is not a good thing. So if you can, if at all possible. Now,
do you have the option of a spigot that does not come through your softener system?
No, it's the way the house was built.
Yeah.
We have a turn off that you can go down and shut it off. I
You
just
can
wondered
shut
if
it off?
mattered.
Yeah, that's the problem. See, it's not really worth it to do that unless you're growing a pretty substantial garden, and then and also
If you've got a lot of stuff to water by hose, you may want to turn that off.
And it's not very expensive to have that bypassed, but just for one spigot. But no,
Okay. I just wondered if it would kill the flowers.
it will not. Yeah.
I love it.
It will not kill them, but it will gradually make your job of watering harder, because the salt actually draws away the moisture, and so
It builds up in the pot, and the plants do start to decline after. a few years.
you have to really be diligent about putting
But if
fresh
you're
soil on
repotting new stuff and annuals every year, and you've got pots that you've just put out, so what? Just
yeah, it's not
water
going to
them.
have.
It's,
It is not going to have that much of an effect.
No.
So I would say no. There's no sense of
Don't worry about it.
But thank you very, very much for the question.
Thank
Appreciate
you
it.
for calling.
Thank you for the question.
All right, now we talked about drought-tolerant plants.
Yeah.
The yuccas and different things. And
Let me talk about we're running down on time.
We got to conserve.
Conserving moisture is very important, just like putting the right amount of moisture out there. Now, in your garden, you can mulch with things like straw, but be real careful, because in a drought season, the straw gets real dry. Now we've got a fire hazard. So you want to be very careful what it is you're doing. If you're going to put grass clippings out there for mulch, then I would very strongly suggest that you put some dirt on top of the clippings, so that you're holding them down, and so that they will retain the moisture better. We also have people that put newspapers down. You want to put about 2 layers of straw down. Putting it in flakes is better. Then newspapers on top of that. Then even plastic on top of that. Now you've got an environment that is trapping the moisture in. You can also use plastic over your ground to hold in some of the moisture with a little bit of sand or dirt over the top of it. The weeds are prevented. You're holding in the moisture, reducing the evaporation, so all things can work.
Well, before we run out of time, let's get back to this drought conditions. A lot of counties are having a burn ban.
Yes.
You're not allowed to burn campfires, that type of thing, which will also mean they will not have 4th of July fireworks if there is a burn ban. So you need to look into your county. What is the situation? Are they going to have fireworks? Are they not? Fayette County is different from Wayne County.
There is no reason not to have a burn ban. I don't understand that.
Really, it's crazy to even light a fire here.
It's toasty dry out there.
Don't throw your cigarettes out the window.
My
all
goodness
that
gracious,
good stuff.
we've already put out 2 fires, grass fires. So yeah, that should. I don't know who's responsible in the county
and we
or
can
how
have
it works, but somebody needs to
wonderful
get the fire
4th of July celebration for Independence Day without necessarily having to light things on fire. So
well, I don't know if you can do that.
Well, if you bring enough beer, it depends on the fire. I don't know. Okay.
Listen, we want to thank all of you people for all of your
very much.
participation and all of your well wishes.
Appreciate your
She
calls.
has not been well, and the cards and the well wishing has.
And I have not broken into a coughing fit throughout the whole show.
But she will in just a very short
as
while.
soon
We
as
also
I
want to
get off the air.
we want to welcome Wayne County. If it was a couple of days ago, I would have told you about the fantastic book sale down at the library.
Woo.
And there's still some stuff left over down there. And you really need to go down there and stick your nose in, because you can get gardening books for almost nothing. Almost nothing.
So
it's
don't
fantastic.
forget, tune in again the 4th Friday of the month, 7 p.m. right here, and we'll be back. We're on
4th Monday.
Where am I? I don't even know what day it is. The 4th Monday of the month, right here, 7 o'clock.
Love you. See you next time. Bye.
The Garden Doctor.